Welcome to Blender Tutorials Tips and Tricks. So I would like to start off today with creating a new project. The important thing is when you're creating a new project, if you know the height and width that you would like in either pixels, inches, millimeters, or etc., you can easily enter it in. So say I wanted to go 1600. I'm going to go tab 9 by 900, right? Or I can do a portrait, which would flip these numbers. You can also select from a template. So if you want US letter, that would be the normal paper size that we have in Canada. Advanced options, if you want a clear background, you would want transparency. This would be for developers and creating internet assets and stuff like that. Or you can just go foreground or background color. If I go foreground color, it will be black. If I go background color, it'll be white. And if I have this set up differently, it would be based on whatever this palette is right here. Generally, you want it to be color, not grayscale. However, you can go grayscale if you want to work in grayscale. So yeah. So we have a 16 by 900, and that's pretty standard for most widescreen computer monitors. And there's a couple things I'd like to point out. To start with, I would like to draw your attention down to this area here. And as my cursor is in the working project, you can see numbers. It always starts off from 0, 0 here. And the first number is always the X. And the second number is always the Y. Now, as you recall, I created 1600 by 900. So if I move it down bottom here, in this lower area, it'll say close to 1600 by 900. It'll actually be 16 by 900 if I get it exactly on the corner. As it shows down in that small area. I can also, if I don't want to work with pixels, say I'm creating a design and I need it to be based in inches. I can select inches here. And again, it will show the numbers relative to where my arrow is on the computer. For the time being, I'm going to stick with pixels. Okay. Another thing I would like to point out, rulers. I'm going to click right here in this area here and drag out a vertical ruler. So if I'm aligning objects, I can work with this ruler. Or if I want to draw a straight line, it sometimes helps to have that ruler. Like, see how it snaps? And I can go down while drawing a line. I can also create horizontal rulers by clicking in this area above here, clicking, holding, and dragging down a horizontal ruler. And I can have multiple rulers. So you might be thinking, that's great, but how do you get rid of them? Well, if I'm done with this ruler, I can easily select it and drag it out of my working area, and it's gone. So what if I want to draw lines that are straight without rulers? Well, with the pencil tool or in many of the other tools, I can click here, and then holding Shift, I can draw a straight line by clicking again. Right? And the Shift will always work based on the last points that I make. This works with many of the tools. So, with the rectangle select and the circle select, or the ellipse select. If I wanted to make a straight square selection, again, if I can draw your attention down over here, it'll show the ratio. Right now it's 1.34 to 1. Say I wanted it to be a perfect square. Well, an option to do that would be to hold the Shift key. Well, to create a new one, and hold the Shift key. And do you see how it's always 1 ratio by 1, 1.00 by 1? And it also shows you the pixel count of the rectangle. And once again, that pixel can easily be changed to inches. Inches is really good if you're working with drafts, and I'm assuming probably for sewing projects would be really good too. And it's the same with the circle. So I can create a new circle select. If I hold Shift, it'll easily be it'll be a perfect circle as I scale up or down. Now, say I had a really nice photograph of a person, and say for whatever reason I wanted to scale the image. There are two options. I can scale the layer or the image. However, I want to scale the image because I want it all to scale. If I wanted to make it, say, scale smaller on the sides, if I change this down and I press Tab, or I move down here, it's going to change the bottom number as well. And then it'll scale the whole thing, a perfect aspect ratio scale. But that's not what I wanted. So I'm going to undo, image, scale image. I'm going to click this link so it will not create a perfect aspect ratio scale. And then I'll change this to 1200. And then that will scale the image just along the x-axis. Say I created a neat design. I'll try to really quickly draw a flower design. Say I have what I think is a really neat design here. And I wanted that as a paintbrush style. I can select it with the fuzzy select tool. And then I can go Command Cut or Command X, which would be Edit, Cut. And do you see how in my Brushes tab, I now have that design here. Whenever I cut something off an image, there will create a paintbrush style of that. So if I select the pencil and then this design, and then if I scale it so it's a lot bigger, change the size, and I select nothing because it's select none, I now have a new paintbrush style. We can work with multiple different tools. All right, so say you have a really nice picture. You have a nice picture of an apple, a bunch of apples. And you're like, I'd really like to share that. If you save, it'll save as a GIMP file. But if you want it as an image file, you'd have to export it. And then by default, it goes all export images. So that means I would have to provide the extension. This PNG is an extension. PNG is very good if you want to be exporting stuff for games, or you want to be exporting assets for websites. Anything coding usually is PNG is really the best one to go with because it allows transparent background. If, however, you wanted to export it so something that you can print off so it can go into a photo album, you'd usually want TIFF or JPEG. Again, you would have to provide that in the extension, or you can select it from the drop-down menu here. The next option you'd probably want the most is PDF. PDF is excellent for printing. I'll show you them all. PNG. TIFF is high quality, but usually takes up more hard drive space. JPEG is lower quality, more compressed, less hard drive as well. And then PDF. So the big thing I wanted to cover about PDF versus PNG. PDF is excellent for printing. So say you're creating schematics, like drafts, and you can print on any size paper really. It will remain consistent with the size. So this is a graphing paper that I made in GIMP. And I made it a 1/4 inch each of these boxes. And as you can see, each box line is matching up with 1/4 inch because a PDF will print off the size that you have it in the project. PNG, on the other hand, is the reverse. PNG will usually scale it so it fits the entire image in. So you can see the end of the border is here. Because it's scaled down, you can see that each 1/4 of an inch is slightly less than a 1/4 of an inch. So again, that's something important to know. So say real quick, one thing I forgot to mention in a previous video is that I can also select to change sizes of brushes and stuff like that, like anything with these bars here. I can select all of it and enter manually a different number and enter. And then that will change the size as well. So say I wanted to create a truck for a game that I'm making. I would want transparent background. So this is really important. Image, auto crop, image. So I now just created a truck, and then I auto cropped all the empty borders. So now it's just a simple truck asset. And then say I export it as a PNG. And then in another GIMP project I created the wheels. And then I wanted to know exactly where in relation to the image would the wheels go. This is why these numbers down here are really helpful. So if I say I want the first wheel axis to go right about here, I know on the image in code I would put it needs to be on the truck X 186 by Y 304. Another thing I would like to cover real quick is colors. I can find multiple different colors through the selection. And if you're working in HTML code, you can use whatever color you can. Instead of going to a website and trying to find the color, you can just find the color within this area here, and then I have the code. But when I put it in HTML, it obviously needs a number sign. And I think that concludes this episode.